Very good. All right, so everyone, welcome. Welcome to a special workshop here. JALT Niigata using Google Forms as quizzes, assessment with Google Classroom and third-party apps. My name is Phil. I'll be your host, back-end tech kind of person in the background. And on behalf of JALT Niigata, Pansig, and our co-sponsor Matsuyama, we are excited to have you join us for today's workshop. Let me go ahead and move forward real quick. You can see. There we go. So today's session, we'll give a quick shout out to our sponsors. For those of you that don't know what JALT is, I'll explain maybe 30 seconds on it. And then we'll go over the webinar, housekeeping rules, what's different about this workshop in terms of the technical layout versus a Zoom meeting. And then we'll introduce our lovely, wonderful, amazing, supernatural speakers. And then some Q&A time at the end. So quick shout out to our sponsors. We have JALT Matsuyama co-sponsoring us today for Linda. Hi Linda, hello. They've graciously co-sponsored our event that's happening, so thank you very much. And then also Pansig, they are advertising our event as part of their whole 2-day weekend. I also invite you, after we're done here, please go visit them to check out many other workshops in progress. And then, of course, our JALT Niigata team. Of course, I'm in the way, so I can move myself. There we go. So that's our team. There we go. I moved up. So there's our team here, JALT Niigata team. If you are from Niigata and would like to help out and participate, shoot us an email or shoot us a chat, and we will love to have you on board. Okay. Again, so JALT, for those of you that don't know, JALT stands for Japan Association for Language Teaching. We are an NPO dedicated to basically becoming better teachers. We invite all varieties of different people, whether you are a teacher or not. Even students are welcome to join, overseas members, those that just want not just to learn about English teaching in Japan, but just gather more resources and tools and just get more insight into teaching. So doing that. Quickly, I got 15 seconds, I'm sorry. Webinar housekeeping. So this is a little different than our Zoom meetings. So by default, all of the attendees, except for the 6 of us here, all your videos and mics are disabled by default. So we won't be able to turn on or off unless you say so. And then we'll just, we can enable it in our end. So don't worry, you're not recorded by any means. You can check out our participant count as we move along. For this webinar, Q&A is enabled. It's a little button on the bottom or on the side, wherever your toolbar is. Please use that to ask questions. For example, if you see here, I wrote something for Bill. Bill, what is Google Classroom? And then we will answer it in the order it was received. Okay. Soon I will disable the chat function just to clean up things and to make sure that we give full attention to our speakers. I'll turn on at the end. A recording of this will be available at a later date, I believe through Pansig. I'll have to double check with them, but I know that JALT Niigata will host it on their account. So please be aware of that, and we'll get that ready for you. There will be a post survey after you leave the session. Please fill that out. And as always, please enjoy yourselves. It's going to be a great workshop. We have 2 wonderful speakers, which Melody is going to explain more about these wonderful people. Right, Melody?
Okay.
So,
thanks, Phil.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm Melody Cook, and I'm the program chair. And for a few months now, Niigata JALT has been hosting these webinars. We felt that people needed information now about emergency remote teaching, and so that's what we've been working on. We started off the series with Jose Cruz, and he gave a talk on best practices for using Zoom. Our last presentation was 5 fantastic speakers on remote emergency teaching for young learners. And now as we move further towards the end of our semesters, it's important for us to know about assessment. So I have invited Bill Pellowe and Nathan Gildart to present for us today. What we're going to do is Bill will speak till about 3. We'll have a break because this is 2 presentations. We'll have a break for about 15 minutes. Please put your questions in the Q&A. After Bill has finished his presentation, he will answer. He'll type his his answers back to you. And then from about 3:15 to 4 o'clock, Nathan will give his presentation. So thanks again for joining us, and we hope you enjoy the show. Let's do it.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank, of course, PanSig, Niigata JALT, and Matsuyama JALT for having us here today. So I think I've prepared a little too much to show you, but I do have a pretty comprehensive handout. If I could just put it into the chat. Bill P for Bill Pellowe.me because it's me. PS for PanSig, and 20 because it's 2020. So from that site, I'll show it to you. So this is the web page I just sent to you. I sent you the URL for that. As you can see, I'm at Kindai in the Fukuoka campus. And at the top here is a link to a PDF. And this PDF, I've been working on it for a few years now as to how to set up a Google form quiz with multiple choice. And we'll go through that. But you can also go through this on your own. If you don't want to take notes, you can refer to that later. And the page also talks about other things. The problem with checkbox questions, correcting short answer questions, and we might not have time for the other things, but these are on the page with little videos you could watch. Grouping students by class, using the results spreadsheets, and converting scores like 7 out of 12 into a percentage. And there's a formula for that too on the page. And using Google Drive to convert PDFs, a photo to text. We'll definitely not have time for that, but there's a little video of that on the page that you can see. Okay. So basically, let me just get started. In Google Forms, the first thing I always do is I make sure that I'm using the right account. I have several Google accounts, and the one I want to use is the one that's associated with my university. It's really terrible to make a quiz and then forget which account you've made it under. Choose blank quiz. Okay, and the first things I always do is get the students' names and things like that. So just type name and put that in as a short answer. Student number. And one thing you'll see right here is that it says, check what you can see. Response validation has been added, because I wrote the word number here. So response validation means if this isn't a number, the form is going to say to the student, you've made a mistake. You have to input a number. But my student numbers, sometimes they have letters in them, right? So I remove that. Okay, you don't want that. Make sure that it's required. Make sure your name is also required. Of course, this is going to be worth 0 points. Now, you don't have to do the same thing every single time. If you've already made quizzes before, this is a really important button, import questions. So you click on that button and look at a previous quiz that you've done. And most of these quizzes are, excuse me, most of these quizzes I made for my full-time job at Kindai. And at Kindai, I use Google Classroom, so I don't have to ask the students what their names are. But these quizzes are made for my part-time job, where I do have to ask the students what their names are. So I'm going to select this quiz. And what I want is, usually I'll just go in and take the what's your name, what's your student number, and which class are you in question, so I can reuse them. At the bottom, you just click import questions. I don't know, I think that might have been cut off, but it said import questions. And here's my, which class are you in, Friday 1st, Friday 2nd, Friday 3rd. I use that as a drop down. And if I just want to preview very quickly, that button gives you a preview. And this is what the quiz looks like so far. What class are you in? And there's a choice right there for my students at my part-time job. Okay. So I want to make sure I sort of stick to the, okay. After this, what I usually do is click the equals sign here to add, let me see if I can move this up a little bit. That might be bigger, yeah. To add a new section. I'll put my first questions here. And probably I'll include something that's a little more descriptive than just answer the questions. So, right. And why have a new section? Well, I'll get to that soon. Add a question. First kind of question would be, let's imagine which friend's character works in a okay, so here's a multiple choice question. Which friend's character works in a museum? That's going to be required. It's a multiple choice question. Answer key. I choose the answer that's correct. I could give answer feedback. Incorrect answers. I could say, remember who likes dinosaurs? I hope some of you are old enough to have actually watched Friends, right? Yes, you're right. Okay, you can put a link if you want to, a YouTube video clip if you want to. Okay. And that's my question. I made it worth 1 point. Clicking done means I'm done with my feedback. And that's the question. Okay. Another type of question we could ask is, let's keep the Friends theme. Character likes to eat. If you want to do it, let's look at different types of questions. If this is a checkbox question, you could actually choose more than one question as an answer. Monica doesn't really like to eat, but let's just overlook that for a second, right? In high school, she did. I know way too much about Friends. So that is a checkbox question. Now, I want to stop for a second to show you what's a problem with checkbox questions, okay? A problem that you have with checkbox questions that might be unexpected, okay? So in a situation where more than one answer is correct, what's the fairest way to make a question? Or in other words, the problem with checkbox questions. Now let's imagine a quiz that follows an imaginary listening exercise. So the information: Anne had a great weekend, Bob had a terrible weekend, Carl had a fun weekend, and Dan, short for Danielle, she had a really sad weekend. Oh, that doesn't work. His dog ran away. So here are the answers. There's the information we know after we have listened to it. Who had a good weekend? Anne and Carl, worth 2 points, right? That's great. But if a student only catches that Anne had a good weekend, they get 0 points because they had to answer Anne and Carl. And to me, this isn't what I wanted to do with a checkbox question, right? I wanted them to get partial credit. What's the best way to do that? Well, multiple choice like this, I think, doesn't work that well because it's the same problem, right? If they only choose Anne, they still get 0. This is my favorite type for this. Multiple choice grids. And I know a lot of people avoid these because they're kind of difficult to visualize. Like, what's this going to look like? Well, here's what it's going to look like, okay? And this is the choosing the right answer, choosing the right answer. So you can see that at the top, good weekend, not a good weekend. And at the side, Anne, Bob, Carl, and Dan. Okay? So you put in your column first, put in your rows down the side. You can decide whether or not the people who, like Bob and Dan, I always say 0 points, and 1 point for Anne, 1 point for Carl, because they both had a good weekend. So if a student answers Anne, but forgets to answer Carl, they get 1 point instead of 0, or 2 for the correct answer. And I just think that works a little better. I think that works a little better. Okay. So going back to the quiz. Always remember to make sure that the answers are required. Let's take a look at that type of question we just did. All right. This is the checkbox multiple choice grid, or checkbox grid, either one. They both work very similarly. Okay. So you can use these for true false questions. These are opinions, but I just want you to see it. And the multiple choice grid, when you choose answer key, you can see what it's going to look like. Okay, these are 1 point each. Done. True, false. You can add columns if you want to. Okay, you can require a response in each row, which means each one needs an answer. The answer key. Okay. And this is one of my favorite ways to make true false questions. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is, well, it's kind of a way to prevent cheating. A lot of my quizzes on Google Quiz go along with the textbook. So the questions basically have to be in the order that they are in the textbook. But when there are quizzes that I'm making not based on a textbook, or quizzes that are additional answers, for example, comprehension questions based on a conversation in the textbook, then I can mix it up. I can mix up the order of answers. And this is how you do that. So in the question right here, or in this question right here too, there are 3 dots. And in Google, 3 dots are always your friend. Click on them, they'll show you things. Shuffle option order. Okay. So that means that every time someone looks at this question, these will be in a different order, okay? And I think we can show that just by looking at the preview. So I have to give my name, my student number, and my class. And here we have Rachel, Monica, and Joey. When I created that question, it was Joey, Rachel, and Monica. But this student sees it as Rachel, Monica, and Joey. The next student will see it mixed up in a different way. But notice the questions are still in the same order. And if we want to mix up the question order, we have to do that in a different place. Okay. So I'd like to talk about these buttons up at the top. I pushed this one earlier, preview, that shows you what your quiz looks like. Customize theme is the one that helps you make it look nice. You can choose an image to go across the top. Okay. Or you can upload an image from your own images, or browse your own photos with that. Okay. Let me just choose that one. It looks kind of fun. And after you upload the image or choose an image, Google scans the image for the basic colors and changes your colors here to look sort of nice with the image. Okay. But this is the important one, settings. Some of these settings will look a little different than your settings because I have at Kindai University, our email was created as a Google account. Now we use Google Classroom. So this requires sign-in, restrict to users in Kindai. You might not see that question, but you will see this question if your email account was provided by Google, or if you have Google accounts at your school. And in this case, I'm making quizzes for students at my part-time job. So I definitely want to make sure that's not clicked. Otherwise, my part-time job students can't access this quiz. If I'm using Google Classroom, I will click this, collect email addresses. Then I don't have to ask what their names are. That gets collected automatically. If I want them to be able to take the quiz again, I can let them edit their answers after they've submitted. Okay. For the presentation, if we have multiple pages, maybe you want to show a progress bar. Here is a magic option, shuffle question order. That means every question will be shuffled within its own section. Okay. And I don't want them to submit again afterwards. The confirmation message, thanks for taking this quiz. Okay. Quizzes, this is already a quiz, but this is the option you choose if you, by mistake, made a form and realized too late that you wanted to make a quiz. That's where you click it. Okay. My university doesn't use Chromebooks, so this is not an option for me. Releasing the grade, this is already checked because we don't have any answers that I have to check manually. I can talk about manual checking later. but I just want to go back to presentation. Shuffle question order, okay? That was important. I'm gonna save. So if you remember earlier, name, student number, and which class are you in, and then I said, use this equals sign. That's actually a make a new section sign. The reason is because shuffle order shuffles within the section. So now, if we take a look at the quiz, name, class, and student number, they're in a different order. If we didn't have a section, then name and class might have come after these questions. Okay? So I just want to really stress that point. If you have shuffle question order, this shuffles within sections. Okay? So if section 2 is, for example, answering questions about a reading, and section 3 is something about the listening, you want them to be separate, but shuffled within the section. Well, maybe here we're going to have write your answer. Okay. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Let me move this. Let me get rid of this section. I'll just get rid of this question. Okay. Let me see what else I wanted to talk about. Let's make a new question. And let's see. Ever seen? Let's say you wanted a question where people will be able to give a short answer. Okay. And we don't have any hint here as to what we're looking for. We just want to have the student think and write an answer. In your answer key, you can give as many of the answers as you think might come up. And it could be a lot, right? Especially if you have an answer that has an apostrophe in it, because some students use a straight quote apostrophe, some students will use a Japanese apostrophe, some students won't use the apostrophe at all. But you can make a question that will automatically check any of these as correct. And if you don't click this, then you have a chance to look at those questions before you release the points to the students. Okay. I usually make a written question 2 points, so it's really easy to give partial credit. So now I've got that. Let's see how that changes our settings. It hasn't changed that. Sorry. Oh, it did. I had to scroll down. Okay. So releasing the grade, I want to change that to later after manual review, because I now have a question that I have to take a look at, right? And you can also choose here what the respondents are allowed to see. That actually was available before too. So they can see the questions that they missed, they can see the correct answers, they can see the point values. If you don't want them to see the correct answers for some reason, you can uncheck that, right? So, okay. So let me see. What I'd like to do at this point, oh, give it a name. And give it a title here. And the other important thing is how do your students take this quiz? Right? What do you do? Before we started teaching online, I used to just make things like this, and that would be the homework for the student. I'd have a QR code and a regular written out link to the quiz. I'd print 4 on a piece of paper, cut them up, and hand them out to the students, right? Now I just give them a link. I send them a link. So here's how you get that link. Click send. And this one in the middle is a link. And click shorten the URL to make it nice and short. And copy. Now you've copied the link. Okay. And I just send that to the students. At my part-time job, we use Unipa. So I paste it into the Unipa for the day, and they click on that, and then they go to the quiz, and they take the quiz, right? When I wanted to do QR codes, go to a website like QR Stuff. Website URL, you put it right there, and there's your QR code. Okay, you can just take that and save it, or click download. I always just right-click and save the image, right? But these days, if you're online, you just need to share that that code. Okay. And what I would like to do next. All right, back to here. Okay. Okay, so we've taken a look at the problem with the checkboxes. Okay. And here's one I want to show you with open answers. I've got a short video, and you see, sorry, I'm going to show you the video itself. Okay. Okay, so that looks like it's working out fine. Okay. So this quiz, and the reason I'm showing you this way is because I want to hide my student data while I demonstrate this. Okay, so here's a quiz. They use the textbook. I put a picture of the textbook on the quiz because Corona. And as you can see, we'll have the name, student number, and class, and then the next section. And they are supposed to answer this question from the textbook. Okay, so what's your friend doing? He blank his email. So that's the question. So it should be he's checking his email, or he's reading his email. And the second part, they type a word. So if I click preview, you can see what that quiz looks like. And Friday, first, second, third, as I showed you before, like that. So up at the top, you click responses. You can see I've only got 29 responses so far because this is a quiz they took only 2 weeks ago. There are 3 classes. It usually gets up to about 80. You can see the questions, 9 questions, student number, class. And here's where you check it, right? He's checking his email. That's the first one there. I anticipated that question. So you can see automatically it says 2 points right here. 7 people did it that way. He is checking his email. I anticipated that response. 4 people did that. It already says 2 points. He's checking his email. 1 person said it that way with the hyphen. I anticipated that as well. 2 points. He's checking his email. But this, he is checking his email with no period. I click the green check to say that's correct. Here they left out the verb, the be verb. He is. So I choose 1. I'm going to give them 1 point for that. He's reading his email. Sure, why not? He's sending his email. I'll take it. He's checking her email. Now that's just creepy. That's just creepy. That's 1 point. He sent his email. Well, the entire point of this particular unit is the continuous form. So this is has to be incorrect. 2 people said it that way. I'm watching a movie about Korea. You might wonder what this is about, but I think they just read it wrong. So that's number 3. Number 3, they just went to the wrong direction with the. They went the wrong direction with it. At the very bottom, it's just out of reach of your screen, I think. If I make that smaller, no. It says save, okay? So all of these things that you have done, and if you added feedback or whatever, at the very bottom, there's a purple thing. I see it's kind of cut off. You have to click save in order to save your changes that you've just made. Click save. Comes back, and all of these are saved. All of my feedback is saved, okay? Now, unfortunately, the ones that I said are correct that I hadn't anticipated, later when 10 more students take this quiz, I'll have to go back to them. I'll have to check these again. This form won't just automatically say, hey, that was correct before. It should be correct again. Okay. This is one of the most time-consuming ways of doing a quiz, but it does actually make them write things, so that's good. Okay. And you can see that was an example of feedback. So here, I'm watching a movie, I click add feedback, and I just type it in. Okay. So I'm about out of time now. On my billp.me/ps20 that I put into the chat, you can also find additional things like how to, on that page that has all the students' names and answers and their class, how to separate that out. So each class is on a different page. There's a video for that and a couple of other resources there too. Okay. I see there are a few questions in the question and answer. I still have 5 more minutes. Okay, Daniela, Brunea asked, how does a teacher restrict the time the student can take the quiz in? Really can't. I don't think that can be done. Okay, and Lowell says you can use form limiter, which is, what is form limiter, a plugin? Well, if you could find a way to control what browsers your students are using, you could probably find a way to limit the time. On the quiz, you can alternate between whether you're accepting answers or not. So you can turn a quiz off and turn a quiz back on again at a specific time. But as to, okay, Mary, I'll put that in the chat. As to how to actually set a time limit, either I don't know or it can't be done. Bill, can you explain in more detail why shuffling answers in a section is a good idea? Cheating. If there are students taking a quiz with each other, like sitting next to each other, I just want to make it a little more difficult for them to tell each other, first one's B, second one's C, third one's A, like that. It just makes it a little more difficult. Okay, Lowell says that form limiter is an add-on. Yeah, in Google Classroom, you can set a due date and a time. Sure. Okay, and Mary asked, how can I see the PDF that you mentioned? Mary, let me type that into the chat. HTTP Bill P for Bill Pellowe, me, because it's me, PS for PlayStation. No, Pansig, and 20, because it's 2020. So do you see that link? So that has the PDF in the, a link to the PDF right there. And Claire said the chat is now open if needed. Okay, so I think I'm at the end of my time. I'd like to thank you all. I really hope it has been useful. If you have more questions for me, I'll be around. So in the Q&A, you can type questions and I'll try to type answers to you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Bill. That was really wonderful. If other people would like to show, well, somehow. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.